he is so complete. He can go get you. He could go inside. He could go outside. He could use the ring, which he does often, and he can counterpunch. He can do so many things. He can time you. He can go to the body and the head, of course. And, you know, and he finishes well.
Nah, I just think I'm the face of boxing.
If Davis thought Santa Cruz was going to fold from his...
He seems kind of awkward, but in this fight, he's not looking...
There's a big left hand, and down goes Romero. It was one of the few left hooks he's been able to get in.
Another left hook and a right hand by Garcia. And now, Garcia forced to take a knee.
All them guys is easy work. They easy work, man. Easy work. I'm the top dog.
Imagine the indescribable primal terror an antelope feels when cornered by a hungry lion. Even that pales in comparison to the plight of those stepping into the ring against the ruthless Gervonta Davis. With 30 fights, 28 knockouts and titles in 3 weight classes, he is the embodiment of invincibility with a genius of knockout known as Tank. Today you will learn everything about him. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. It's often said that only those who have nothing can achieve success in boxing, and Gervonta Davis is a prime example of this rule. Tank was born on November 7, 1994 in Baltimore, specifically in the Sandtown, Winchester area, which was notorious for its crime and danger. Life in such a place could never be easy, but Davis's parents made it even worse. From birth, he and his brother witnessed their parents abusing drugs.
Yeah, both of my parents was on drugs.
This situation couldn't last forever, and in 1999, Davis's parents lost their parental rights and the boys were sent to foster homes. It took Tank's grandmother 3 years to get her grandchildren back home.
They were both on drugs, and my mother left me and my brother in the house by herself, you know, so they took us into custody, you know, and you know, my grandma fought to get us back for about a good 3 years.
Around 2002, Davis's uncle James Walker took over his upbringing. Unfortunately, the nephew was far from a gift and often disrupted peaceful days with his rebellious behavior. The main problem was fights, which occurred almost daily. Seeing that this behavior would lead to nothing good, his uncle decided to send him to a boxing gym where the boy's infinite energy could be channeled in the right direction.
You know, I was fighting a lot, fighting at school, fighting on the block, you know, so my uncle sent me fight outside my doorstep. So he took me to the gym. So once he took me to the gym, I felt that love that I wasn't getting at home, because I was a bad kid. I was like always active.
Once in the gym, the street kid quickly made a name for himself and caught the attention of someone who would change his life forever. That person was Coach Calvin Ford, and it's worth talking about him in more detail. In his youth, Calvin led a criminal lifestyle and was part of a Baltimore gang.
Money, that's all I wanted to deal with, money. Nothing else, how the money move, how to get the money, that's it, nothing else. My thing was, I wasn't like an enforcer. The difference between me and if you mess with my business, then you mess with me. I deal with you.
Initially, things were going well for him, but at some point, Ford was arrested and charged with racketeering and organized crime. His punishment was 10 years in prison. For most people, such a sentence would mean the end of a normal life, but for Ford, it was just the beginning. While in prison, he met Reggie Gross, a former professional boxer in the heavyweight division who fought a young Mike Tyson in 1986. Besides boxing, Reggie was involved in illegal activities and was sentenced to life imprisonment for several murders in 1989. Gross was the first to introduce Kelvin to the basics of boxing and showed him everything he knew. After his release, Ford continued to study boxing, and within a few years, he became a professional coach and met a little boy named Gervonta Davis. Ford first heard his name from his son, who knew Tank personally, and asked his father to take the boy under his wing.
The whole time my son was telling me about Tank, you know, and then my son, he wanted to go back to Jersey, and he made a comment. We was somewhere up DC, and he sit there and say, man, you'll make a good role model for Gervonta. And ever since then, it was just like my son was just telling me, I'm not gonna be here. Put Shorty up under your wing.
Shortly after these events, Ford's son tragically passed away, and training Gervonta became his life's main goal. Kelvin essentially became a father figure to Davis and used his bitter experiences to guide the boy on the right path, setting him the goal of becoming the world champion. With the support of his coach and faith in himself, the hungry for victories Tank began his challenging journey. By the way, it was Kelvin who gave Gervonta his memorable nickname. In childhood, the boy was quite skinny, and his large head looked disproportionate on his small body, which older kids often teased him about. Ford decided to look at this differently and compared Davis's large head to a tank turret. In just 3 years of training, Gervonta mastered all the basic techniques, matured significantly, and won his first tournament.
Yeah, I won my first championship, world championship at 10 years old.
By the age of 17, Davis had over 200 amateur bouts, to be exact 220, of which he won 205. Over the years, the boy participated in every prestigious tournament, including the Youth Olympic Games in 2011. At that time, the Baltimore native was only 17 and weighed 125 pounds, but he already looked like a future champion. In that fight, he faced another southpaw, but Davis didn't flinch, and after a minute of preparation, began to counter and punish the guy for every move. By the end of the fight, Gervonta was dominating, and if not for the headgear, he would have likely knocked him out, but instead he won by a landslide. The most memorable event of Tank's amateur career was his incredible performance at the Golden Gloves tournament in 2012. Then, in just 3 days, Gervonta won 5 fights, knocking out each opponent. As the champion later admitted, it was all because of Ray Leonard, who watched the matches from the stands. The boy really wanted to impress the boxing legend with his skills. Davis's amateur career lasted nearly a decade and provided a great foundation for transitioning to the professional league.
Fighting different guys, you know, all over the country, that plays a big role in the pro game. You know, you got to be experienced. You know, for me being so young, my experience just, get me past these older guys because I don't really have my man strength yet.
However, it didn't go without setbacks. Due to constant training camps or competitions outside Baltimore, the boy often missed school and eventually decided to drop out for good. However, after reaching adulthood, Davis realized the importance of education and prepared to fill the gaps in his knowledge, later successfully passing the GED exam, equivalent to a high school diploma. Thus, Tank still received his education. In 2013, Gervonta and Kelvin Ford concluded that they had achieved everything at the amateur level, and it was time to take a serious step and try themselves on the professional scene. The debut fight of the future star took place on February the 22nd in the undercard of a welterweight bout between Lamont Peterson and Kendall Holt. The fight itself didn't even last 2 minutes. Davis quickly finished off his poor opponent. Around this time, Gervonta met Adrian Broner, who, a few months later, introduced the young genius to Floyd Mayweather. By that time, Tank had only 6 or 7 bouts and wasn't well known, so money didn't take the boys seriously. To test the prospect's real skills, Mayweather decided to have a 3-round sparring session with him and initially didn't expect much, but was later delighted. Gervonta made an indelible impression on the boxing king, and Mayweather wanted to sign the boy to his team at all costs. To achieve this, he showered the prospect with jewelry, watches, and even a car. So Davis quickly signed the contract and began a partnership that would soon make him famous. Communication with Floyd helped not only Tank's career, the champion taught the boy to prioritize and explained how things work in the big business.
When we sit down, we don't only just talk about boxing. You know, he look at me as his son. You know, he give me game on, you know, life period. You know, sometimes I'm young, I still want to move at a fast pace. So sometimes he tell me to slow down and things like that. Things will come. You know, along the time, just stay focused and build your team. Make right decisions.
Meanwhile, the career of the mini Tyson, as fans called him, was gaining momentum. In 2 years, he easily improved his record to 11-0, knocking out 10 opponents, many of whom had never been knocked out before. The only one who managed to make it to a decision was the veteran Jermaine Miraz. Somehow, he managed not to get knocked out, although there were knockdowns in the 3rd and 5th rounds. Unfortunately, recordings of these fights have not survived, and the first recorded professional performance of Davis was his fight with Filipino Ricky Dulay, with a record of 8-1.
Another left explosive again. 2, 3, 4.
Gervonta was incredibly fierce and swift like a wild animal. His powerful body shots immediately pushed Ricky to the ropes and made him forget about any counteractions. It seemed like 1 or 2 more heavy punches to the solar plexus and Dulay would fold like a sheet of paper. But it wasn't that simple. Davis decided to act creatively and soon caught his opponent moving forward. Bam! The first left straight put the Filipino on his knees, and the second forced the referee to stop the fight.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. That's it. We're done.
Just 1.5 months later, Tank was ready for another epic knockout. This time, the one to help him with that was an experienced Mexican, Santa Cruz, with over 50 professional fights. However, victories among them were barely more than half. In the first round, the young prodigy secured a knockdown and within a few minutes finished off the wounded veteran. After the knockout in the fight with Cruz, Gervontai's record turned to 13-0, and in December, he returned to the ring once again. His opponent was Mexican Luis Sanchez. Until recently, he had been on a beautiful 6-fight winning streak, but then he fought for the WBO NABO title and lost by knockout. In my opinion, deciding to fight Tank right after a stoppage loss was foolish, but it seems Luis felt confident in his abilities. Gervonta toyed with Sanchez throughout the first half of the fight, but after the midpoint, he picked up the pace and finished him in the 8th round. After a bright end to the year, the future champion took a 4-month break. After resting, Davis decided to continue his streak against Mexican boxers and agreed to fight Guillermo Avila with a record of 15-5 and a 2-3 score in the last 5. Avila decided to go all out, but Gervonta didn't appreciate the idea and immobilized the Mexican in the middle of the fight. As you remember, Tank had a tough childhood, and the blame for this lies with his parents. However, the boxer never held a grudge against him. Even after being placed under his uncle's care, Gervonta often visited home and tried to spend time with his mother. As he grew older, he began inviting her to his fights. To this day, she can often be seen as an honored guest in the front row at many of her son's performances. The last test before his first title fight was a meeting with Mario Macias, whom the promoters objectively offered to the prospect for devouring. In no universe did a guy with a record of 28-18 have a chance of lasting even half the fight with Tank. Moreover, the bout took place not at 130 pounds, but in the lightweight division, where Davis had even more power for a knockout. The very first hook from Tank made Mario kneel and begged for mercy. Davis's team started 2017 in the gym, preparing for the fight of his life. It was about the title clash between Gervonta and the unbeaten IBF champion Puerto Rican Jose Pedraza. At that time, Sniper was on a 22-fight win streak, had defended the title twice and was considered a formidable opponent. Pedraza's only apparent weakness was the lack of knockout power. The bout was crucial for both fighters. With a victory over Jose, Davis could finally step into the big leagues and start demanding fights with top contenders.
We prepared, we was born, we was built for this, I believe January the 14th, we have a new champ coming back to Baltimore.
But what was in it for the champion? The answer was simple: media exposure. Although Jose's skills were noticeably above average, his recognition among fans was worse than that of a heavyweight debutant, and a victory over a dangerous prospect, especially Floyd Mayweather's protege, could fix that. Thus, Pedraza was willing to promote the fight by any means necessary.
He says he would like to say that he's sorry for Davis being signed to Mayweather Promotion, because on January 14th, when he takes away his undefeated record, it's going to feel like he beat Mayweather.
Now, all that remained was to win. But did he have a chance? Davis punished him for this and knocked him out in the 7th round.
My team put a hard work, so just, us coming out on top, it means a lot. And also having a great promoter, a great boxer backing me, it felt great.
The journey was far from easy, but for a young man with a goal and support, nothing is impossible. However, all the most important victories of Tank were still ahead, and this belt served as the starting point for them. Usually, it takes at least a few weeks before a boxer gets the name of their next opponent, but Gervonta knew this even before stepping into the ring with Pedraza. But how did this happen? The fact is, Davis was not the main IBF contender. This role belonged to the unbeaten British Commonwealth champion Liam Walsh, but Floyd helped his boys skip the queue. The Brit was deprived of a timely title fight, but he was promised to be the first to face the champion. This is exactly how it happened. For the first title defense, the American, along with his entire team, went to the opponent's territory in Britain. Generally, fighting on an opponent's home turf always carries the risk of being robbed by the judges, but fortunately, Davis is not one to let others decide the outcome of his fights. Davis's first problem began even before the opening bell. At the official weigh-in ceremony, he missed the weight limit by 2 pounds and was given a couple of hours to cut the rest. Tank returned earlier and tried to step on the scales again, but this attempt also failed. Finally, on the 3rd attempt, Gervonta showed the necessary figures and was admitted to the fight almost at the last minute.
He's on unsteady legs. He looks as though he's gone here, Walsh. One more and it's all over. He stopped it.
The fight didn't last even 3 full rounds. In the first round, Davis demonstrated a cosmic difference in speed and footwork. Walsh, with his decent anthropometry, couldn't even touch the opponent, while the champion easily threw jabs and immediately moved out of the line of attack. The Brit hoped that at some point the champion would slow down and give him a chance, but that moment never came. In the 3rd round, Davis caught him with a huge left and immediately followed up with several punches.
Now, and he's trying to finish it here, and he puts him down.
The damage was so significant that the Brit, upon getting up, continued to wobble and struggled to lift his hands. Gervonta didn't give him time to recover and simply finished him.
Steady legs. He looks as though he's gone here, Walsh. One more and it's all over. He stopped it.
As usual, in the post-fight interview, Davis credited all the glory to his mentor.
Today the performance was great. I ended my camp in Las Vegas with Floyd Mayweather Jr. He was a lot. He made the lot in camp,
Tank knocked out Walsh in May, and by early July, there were talks that he was set to perform on the undercard of his mentor, who was returning to boxing for a money fight with Conor McGregor. Former WBO champion Roman Martinez, who had recently lost to Vasily Lomachenko, was supposed to be Davis's opponent. Later, it turned out that Martinez couldn't make weight in time and needed a replacement. The candidate was a young and unbeaten boxer from Nicaragua, Francis Fonseca. During the weigh-in, Tank encountered problems again. He weighed in at 132 pounds. As before, the IBF gave him 2 additional hours, but Davis refused to cut the weight and was stripped of the belt. Now only Fonseca could claim it, though this didn't make the task of beating Gervonta much easier. As expected, the champion was too much for the prospect. Fonseca's meager arsenal only put the audience to sleep, and his punches were as powerful as a baby's. Meanwhile, Davis acted sharply and creatively. His attacks came from different directions and at unpleasant angles, especially the uppercuts with which he tried to crack the opponent's head like a nut. In the 4th round, the American decided to entertain the fans with showboating in the style of peak Roy Jones, but Fonseca didn't take advantage of the situation even then. By the 8th round, Tank got tired of playing around and knocked the opponent down, and he didn't get up.
Okay, the kids will tell you. The ruling.
Dan!
And the fight has been stopped.
A good win, but not particularly joyful. 3 months later, Davis unexpectedly attracted media attention, but unfortunately not due to his professional career. The champion got into a fight with his childhood friend Anthony Wheeler and inflicted serious injuries that put the guy in hospital. According to the victim, Tank attacked him, but what actually happened is unclear. The police immediately took an interest in the case and it quickly got to court. But the situation was resolved there. The parties reached an agreement and the case was closed. After settling the issues with Wheeler, Gervonta could return to fighting. A big surprise was his statement that his standard camp was being moved from his native Baltimore to Florida, and the boxer would now train not only with Calvin Ford, but also with Kevin Cunningham. Formerly a police officer and now a coach, Kevin raised several top boxers like Corey Spinks and Devin Alexander, and in recent years he had worked with Adrian Broner, who introduced him to Gervonta. In terms of fights, Gervonta was most interested in the belt, so he decided to get a contender's bout in March 2018 at any cost. His target was the top 5 boxer Billy Dibb.
Hopefully I'm trying to get my belt back. I'm supposed to be fighting, I want to say Billy Dibbs for the eliminator to fight the guy that got the belt.
Okay.
So definitely.
And you said March probably.
Yeah, March.
There had been rumors about this fight before, but the fighters' paths always diverged. Unfortunately, the same happened this time. Instead of a solid top contender like Billy Dibb, Davis got Argentinian Jesus Cuellar as an opponent. The guys were set to fight for the vacant WBA super title, which suited everyone involved. Overall, Cuellar was a good boxer and had solid experience, but his modest size and age, well over 30, didn't inspire confidence in his victory. The slow Cuellar didn't react to Davis's sharp attacks and was justly knocked out in the 3rd round. As soon as Davis draped the belt over his shoulder, began the talks about potential fights with other champions. There were several names, but perhaps the most interesting idea was to organize a meeting between Gervonta and Vasily Lomachenko, especially since Tank wasn't against testing his strength.
For me, it really doesn't matter. I'm a fighter, you know. But whatever my team, I have a great team. I think I have one of the best teams in boxing. So if they up for it and they say so, then I'm with it.
Gervonta's attitude towards Lomachenko was always contradictory. He didn't see him as one of the best boxers of his time, but rather was surprised at how people could praise a guy with just 10 professional fights. Besides, the champion believed that their potential fight was beneficial only for Vasily, as his days in boxing were already numbered.
He old. Well, in boxing years, he old. You know, he 30 years old, so he trying to rush the fights. You know, he won his fights when he won them. You know, he know his door is closing on boxing, so he want to get, you know, how many big fights he can. And I am one of the biggest fight in 130 other than him, so he wanna cash out.
I don't know about you, but I would have been incredibly interested to see their meeting between 2017 and 2019. one is a technician to the core, with possibly one of the best defensive techniques and footwork in boxing history. The other is an insanely powerful puncher with good cardio, high fighting IQ, and incredible speed. Even on paper, such a fight looks phenomenal, and in the ring, it could have been a real blockbuster, but it was never organized. Perhaps the reason was mutual dislike between Davis and Lomachenko's promoters, Floyd Mayweather and Bob Arum. These two have a long history of conflict that didn't end even after money left Top Rank. On the other hand, we don't even know if negotiations for this fight took place, so it's pointless to discuss it now. Another potential opponent for Gervonta was the champion from the lower weight class, Abner Mares. In 2016, the American with Mexican roots defeated Jesus Cuellar and became the WBA champion, then successfully defended the title. WBA wanted to organize a unification bout with Davis, and both boxers showed interest, but Tank once again showed his unruly nature and got into trouble. In September, the champion was in Washington resting at Rose Bar Lounge, where he racked up a bill of $10,000 for the evening. The enormous bill led to an argument with a man, which soon escalated into a fight in the parking lot. Eyewitnesses called the police and the troublemakers were detained. Soon, the conflict was resolved, but much time was lost, and Gervonta couldn't fight again in 2018. While the Baltimore native was having fun and negotiating with authorities, Mares fought Leo Santa Cruz and lost, but the fight with Davis still interested him. For this reason, Abner waited for his potential opponent to resolve all his issues, then signed the contract for the fight. The meeting was set for February 9 in San Diego, and nothing promised trouble until Mares withdrew. It soon became clear that Abner had a bad sparring session and suffered a very serious injury, a detached retina. Many athletes end their careers with such a diagnosis, so a potential meeting with Davis was completely out of the question. Promoters immediately began looking for a replacement and soon announced the name of the new contender. It was a tall Mexican, Hugo Ruiz, on a 3-fight win streak. Gervonta cornered and disabled his opponent already in the first round. A few months later, his return was announced for July against mandatory contender Ricardo Nunez. The fight was set to take place in Davis's hometown of Baltimore, where tens of thousands of fans had been waiting for him. Who is Ricardo Nunez? An unremarkable Panamanian guy with a 21-2 record who amassed a 10-win streak and thus deserved the chance to try his luck in the big league. Nunez missed a lot and Gervonta took advantage and punished him. By the second round, the contender was out of strength and was finished. Since Davis won the IBF belt, he had a target on his back, and many fighters wanted to make a name for themselves at the expense of the inexperienced but media-attractive young man. Especially often, Gervonta was called out by featherweight division champions wanting to fight for belt unification. One such enthusiast was Leo Santa Cruz, the Mexican king of the lighter weight classes. His clash with Gervonta promised to be exciting and dynamic, but unfortunately, it couldn't be organized in 2019. Then Davis received an offer from the WBA to move up to the lightweight division and fight for another vacant belt. As you can imagine, such opportunities don't come often, so Gervonta quickly agreed and signed the contract. It must be said the opponent he got was far from a walkover. Yuriorkis Gamboa was a Cuban Olympic champion and a top boxer in 2019, riding a 4-fight win streak. Gamboa's amateur career was illustrious. Victories at the Pan American Games and World Cup, bronze at the World Championships, and of course, gold at the Athens Olympics. Unfortunately, he couldn't support his family with just these achievements, so one day, Gamboa, along with his teammates, fled Cuba and ended up in Germany, where his professional career began. Thanks to his incredible background, Yuriorkis quickly rose to the top of the sport and won a super featherweight division belt, then moved up to 135 pounds where he faced a young Crawford in 2014. The fight was tough for both sides, but in the middle of the bout, Terence found the keys and managed to knock out the Cuban in the 9th round. Since then, Gamboa had lost only once but hadn't fought for a belt again until the WBA offered him a chance to contest the vacant one against the young Tank. The fight with Gamboa was long and not the most eventful, but it ended with an epic knockout in the 12th round.
Coming to this fight, I knew that Gamboa was, he was a tough opponent. Everybody was writing him off, but I know he was a vet. As you see in the ring, I was catching him, I was hurting him, but he still was alert. So I know that he was different from any opponents that I ever fought before.
It soon became known that Gamboa's caution was not due to fear of Davis's punches, but a leg injury he sustained after the knockdown in the 2nd round. The veteran partially tore his Achilles tendon, preventing him from working at full capacity and mostly defending himself. However, this fact did not greatly overshadow Davis's mood, who now officially became a champion in 2 weight classes. But what was he about to do next? In his post-fight speech, Tank made it clear that he was ready to fight all the top contenders who wanted to test themselves.
I'm the top dog, and as you know, there's no safety on this Glock, so bring them on.
However, only 2 specific names interested him: Tevin Farmer and Leo Santa Cruz. With Farmer, the champion had a conflict that began back in 2017. Then, Davis was stripped of the IBF belt for missing weight, and Tevin contested it 3 months later against Kenichi Ogawa. The Japanese won by split decision, but the result was later overturned due to Ogawa failing a steroid test. The unfortunate IBF belt was vacant again, and Farmer won it against Billy Dibb in the summer of 2018. Since then, potential bouts between Farmer and Davis were discussed almost monthly, but they never reached even the negotiation stage between the teams. Periodically, the Baltimore native hinted that he was interested in such a showdown.
I mean, me fighting Tevin is just gonna be amazing. I think somebody gonna get hurt that night.
But nothing came of it, and in 2019, after another victory, Farmer explained the situation in detail and convinced fans that this fight was unlikely to happen.
It can't be made because he say one thing, he say he want me, but the people that's behind him saying something else. Gervonta say he want Tevin Farmer. Leonard Ellaby say, I'm gonna move Gervonta the way I want to move Gervonta. Let's read in between the lines. Eddie has sent them multiple offers saying that Tevin Farmer want to fight, and it's constantly excuses, So I move forward from that. I move forward from that fight. If it happened, it happened. If it don't, I don't give a damn.
Thus, of the 2 potential opponents, Davis had only one left, simplifying the task for managers. But why was the fight against Leo Santa Cruz so interesting to Gervonta? There were many reasons. Firstly, the Baltimore native was interested in opponents with some media presence, and the lighter weight classes in boxing always had significant problems with this. Cruz was one of the few who managed to make a name for himself and gather a solid fan base, which was crucial for promoting the fight to the masses.
Leo Santa Cruz. And I say that because Leo Santa Cruz got he a Mexican, so he bring in a lot of Mexican fans and things like that. Black and Mexicans actually got, when they fight, it's big numbers. Yeah.
Another reason to fight Leo was his accolades. El Terremoto had a 38-1 record, with his last defeat in 2016 in a very close fight by majority decision. The main achievement of this guy was belts in 4 weight classes, from bantamweight to super featherweight, where Cruz took the vacant WBA super title while Davis was moving up for the bout with Gamboa. If Gervonta managed to beat Cruz, especially by knockout, it would become the main achievement of his career. The Davis-Cruz fight began to develop immediately after the former's victory in December 2019, but then the unexpected happened. The world was struck by the coronavirus pandemic, which temporarily paralyzed almost all sports events, including boxing. Before being locked down, Davis and his girlfriend managed to attend a basketball game where they had a heated argument. Gervonta was so enraged by his partner's behavior that he grabbed her by the neck and dragged her off the stands, later apologizing on social media, stating, "I would never hit the mother of my children." Fortunately, he faced no serious legal consequences and could sit out the lockdown without incident. The first signs of resuming activities began in the summer, and on July 22nd, it was officially announced that Gervonta would face Leo Santa Cruz in late October in Connecticut. Later, the fight was moved to San Antonio. To prepare for possibly the toughest opponent in his career, Gervonta brought many different sparring partners to his camp. One of them was a very inexperienced newcomer named Frank Martin.
It was good work, you know what I mean? Got to get in there with a world champion. I held my own, he held his. Good experience, good experience. He's sharp. He's sharp. I don't think Leo gonna have the speed or the reflexes. You know, you gotta have some. I feel like you gotta have some power. You gotta be able to, you gotta be able to hold your own in there. It's like a beast.
Who would have thought that 4 years later, these guys would meet again, but not in the gym, but at the top of the lightweight division as champion and contender? Alright, we'll talk about that later, but for now, let's return to the Cruz fight. To better promote the fight, Showtime released 2 parts of a documentary film about the boxer's preparations. The videos quickly gathered over 5 million views and helped sell a decent number of PPVs. Everyone expected the boxers to show at least an interesting fight, but no one could have imagined that we would witness such a show. The boxers fought on equal terms until the middle of the fight when Gervonta decapitated Cruz with a terrifying uppercut.
I want to say the first couple rounds I was a little cold. I want to say, because it was shots that he touched me with that I ain't supposed to get touched with. But I started warming up. I started settling down. I started listening to Floyd, my coach, and things like that. So that's basically what happened. And once I started settling down.
A few days after the fight, the PPV information was released. The fight sold 225,000 paid streams, generating $16 million in revenue, which, by the way, was a pretty good result, especially for non-heavyweight boxers. Besides the money, Davis added a great name to his collection and held belts in 2 weight categories simultaneously. The next obvious step should have been defending at least one of these titles, but which one? We had to wait a long time for the answer because Davis got into big trouble again. In November 2020, Gervonta was driving at high speed through the streets of his native Baltimore and, at one point, ran a red light. As a result, the boxer crashed into a Toyota Solara with a group of young people, including a pregnant girl. All of them were hospitalized with various injuries, but unfortunately, serious harm was avoided thanks to the airbags.
Davis was not only driving that Lamborghini when that crash happened, but he is also at fault. Surveillance video captures the shocking moment Gervonta Davis allegedly plows into a fence after crashing into another car.
The investigation was long and complicated. David vehemently denied his guilt, and the police had to gather evidence piece by piece. In March 2021, Gervonta was charged with 14 counts, but he continued to insist on his innocence. During the proceedings, Tank was allowed to continue his career and have new fights, and Davis promptly took advantage of this opportunity by announcing the name of his new opponent. As I mentioned earlier, it was assumed that the Baltimore native would defend one of his existing titles, but he decided to go even further and move up to the super lightweight division for a 3rd belt. Tank's new target was the unbeaten WBA champion Mario Barrios, who was given no chance against the great Gervonta, although calling El Azteca a walk in the park would be an injustice. In the 7 years of his professional career, Mario had 26 fights, winning all of them. Interestingly, he started in the super bantamweight division, which given his 6-foot height sounds insane. However, he didn't stay in this weight class for long and quickly moved up to 140 pounds. By 2019, he became the WBA champion at 140 pounds and successfully defended the title a year later. Despite all his achievements before the fight with Gervonta, Mario was considered a serious underdog, and at some point, the odds for him were plus 380. Davis struggled to find the right distance, but once he managed to close in, Mario fell, and shortly before the end of the fight, he was finished.
No, because I was coming up the 2 weight classes, but I knew that, if I catch him, I know for sure I'm cracking. So when I caught him, it showed.
After defeating Barrios, Gervonta briefly became a simultaneous champion in 3 weight classes. But then his super featherweight title was taken away because the Baltimore native no longer planned to cut weight. Left with 2 titles, Davis could defend either of them and decided to face the top contender in the 135-pound division. This role belonged to the young Rolando Romero, who earned his title shot in a fight against Anthony Yigit. The official fight announcement came on October 6 and the date was set for December 5. Everything was going smoothly until 2 weeks before the date when the news broke that Romero was accused of sexual assault and had to withdraw from the fight. Thus, the tournament was left without a main fight just 14 days before the event. The situation was critical, but surprisingly, a replacement was found very quickly. The contender status was given to a young and unknown Mexican, Isaac Cruz. Pitbull had a 22-1 record and was unbeaten in 18 fights, but no one gave him a chance against one of the best boxers in the lightweight division. Everyone expected another quick knockout from Gervonta, and only the champion himself understood that this guy could be very dangerous.
I know I was in that position before, so him just being an underdog like that, I know that he's coming, he's coming fully prepared and, strong, so.
Who could have thought that these words would become a prophecy? Cruz pressed Davis for all 36 minutes, but Gervonta was more accurate and looked better at long and middle distances, securing the victory. The first thing Davis mentioned in the interview was hand problems that prevented him from working at full strength.
I hurt my left hand in probably like the 6th round, but I got through it.
Then he praised Cruz and jokingly said that he didn't even plan to fight this tough guy again.
He's definitely a warrior. I think that, even though he didn't get the win, a star was born tonight.
Does this deserve a rematch?
Hell no.
Whether it was the broken left hand or Cruz's skull made of alien materials, it's unclear. But the phenomenal streak of 16 knockouts was interrupted and there's nothing to be done about it. However, from Davis's post-fight interview, it was clear that he was just happy to win and go home with the belt, and it didn't bother him much whether the fight ended early or not. After defeating Cruz, Davis found himself at a crossroads, not knowing who he would fight next, but unexpectedly, the announcement of the fight between Devin Haney and George Kambosos put everything in place. The guys were supposed to fight for the undisputed lightweight championship, and Gervonta really wanted to face the winner.
I want to get the winner out of Devin and Kambosos.
Considering Tank's incredible win streak, epic style, and phenomenal media presence, his fight against the undisputed champion could become the biggest event of the year. However, Floyd and his team decided that it would be more profitable for Gervonta to fight Rolando Romero, who had resolved his legal issues and was ready to fight. This decision greatly angered Davis, and the seeds of doubt planted in him long ago took root. Gervonta decided to leave Mayweather and handle his affairs independently, as money once did. The champion argued his decision by saying it was time to grow up and step out of his mentor's shadow.
I can never take nothing away from Floyd because he the one got me out. He put me in a position to make money. You know what I mean? I never can, go against him. But sometimes it's time to, you know what I mean? It's time to grow up and become your own man. That's all. That's all. I never said nothing like anything bad or like too bad or anything like that. But it's time to, you know what I mean, be my own man, handle my business like me, hands on with my own, you know what I mean, my own business. I've been signed to him for 7 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's time for me to...
Time to spread your wings.
Yeah.
Thus, the meeting with Rolly was supposed to be the last joint endeavor of Gervonta and Floyd. As for the fight itself, Romero got a title shot in just 14 fights, but his merits as a boxer were minimal. The main reason this guy was wanted in a high-profile fight was his incredibly long tongue and overinflated self-esteem.
But I mean, you guys gonna see the semifinal. I'm gonna knock this dwarf the out. That's how it is. You hear that? I'm gonna knock you the out. And now I'm what, 14-0. I'm fighting on pay-per-view. I'm gonna knock Tank the out. Everybody gonna see that shit. And it's simple as that. I mean, he got a big ass head. It's gonna be kind of hard to miss. I mean, he gets hit by every single opponent. I mean, little Santa Cruz is beating the out of him until, I mean, Lewis was the same punch 3 times in a row.
Gervonta keeps talking about these skills and stuff, but I mean, I just see his face get swollen up every single fight. He doesn't really have much skills. He just bullies a bunch of smaller opponents, weight-drained opponents. He's not that special.
Davis didn't see Romero as a top-level boxer and believed he earned the title shot solely for his comical and highly inappropriate trash talk.
I don't think he's awkward. I just think that he's a fighter that's just started fighting. That's, you know how when somebody first come in the gym and like yeah. When somebody first come in the gym and they've been coming for like a little minute, so they think they nice now. It's different levels. You know what I mean? It's definitely different levels when you come to the sport of boxing. It's people that play with boxing. It's people that been doing this since they was, you know what I mean, kids. You got somebody that's been doing it since they was 7, and somebody that was doing it since they was 17.
So it was one word against another. Who was right? The first minutes were spent on reconnaissance, but when Romero got tired of waiting for his chance, he jumped at Davis and was immediately knocked out.
I knew that it was all about selling the fight. I'm glad that we didn't fight the first time because I was so emotional. But I'm just thankful and grateful to be in this position and be able to come out with a win.
Davis's words about Romero's low level were confirmed, but as a showman, Rolly performed brilliantly. Their fight sold nearly 300,000 PPVs and generated over $20 million in profit, which was the best result of the champion's career. Now that Gervonta became a free agent, all roads were open to him, and he could get almost any fight. Due to his absence in the super lightweight division, the Baltimore native was stripped of his belt so he could fully focus on one weight class. I think the idea of fighting for the undisputed title was still on his mind, but circumstances made such a bout impossible. Davis understood everything perfectly and decided to focus on something more real, namely the long-awaited clash with Ryan Garcia. Calling this meeting long-awaited is no exaggeration because fans had been asking to bring these guys together for 5 years, ever since they both shone in the super featherweight division. Technically, nothing prevented them from fighting back then, but there was little sense in this bout. Why extinguish stars against each other? Instead, they were allowed to grow and spark a conflict that interested millions of people worldwide. The greatest interest in promoting the fight was shown by Garcia, who had been calling out Gervonta all these years.
2 rounds! 2 rounds! 2 rounds, you're going to sleep!
Man, I really want to be a man of my word. I want to fight Tank. I know people are, worried about that one, but I'm ready for it,
I'm not looking for a number in particular. I'm sure it'll be a lot of money. I'm just looking to make the fight happen.
And these are just a couple of interviews, not to mention the tweets, Instagram posts, and much more. Ryan practically lived the dream of this fight and did everything to get it anytime, anywhere. Considering this, I can't even imagine what emotion Garcia felt when negotiations for a bout with Davis began in the fall of 2022. I'm not sure, but probably at that moment, the Flash was the happiest person on earth. By the end of November, the fighters announced to fans that they were going to fight in early 2024, and everything pointed to an April bout. But before that, Gervonta wanted to have another fight in January. Initially, it was assumed that Garcia would also perform at this event, but later plans slightly changed and Ryan preferred to just wait for Tank. Soon, the name of Davis's next opponent was announced, the IBF Super Featherweight champion Hector Luis Garcia. The Dominican didn't stand out much except for his clean 16-0 record and a couple of tough opponents, but they were in a lower weight class. Most likely, his contender status was due to his perfect record, which plays a big role in promoting fights. In early December, the official press conference for the fight was held, and nothing foreshadowed trouble. But we remember well how good Gervonta is at getting into trouble. On December 27, a call came from Davis's home to the police where his girlfriend, model Vanessa Posso, claimed that during an argument, the boxer raised his hand against her. Soon, the police arrived and the champion had to go to the station, and his companion gave her statement. A few hours later, Gervonta posted a small bail and was released, but the wrath of the fans poured down on him. Tank insisted he had never hit either Vanessa or the child, but not everyone believed him. Fortunately, a few days later, the model admitted that her words were a mistake and that Davis hadn't touched anyone. If this hadn't happened, not only the fight with Garcia, but also the entire career of the Baltimore native could have been in jeopardy. Although the situation was resolved peacefully, Gervonta experienced severe stress and it was unclear how well he could perform against Garcia. Serious concerns about the champion's condition arose in early January when he showed up to the official stare-down in a strange state, seemingly under the influence of alcohol. This episode significantly increased the Dominican's chances in the eyes of fans, but when the fighters got into the ring, everything fell into place. The fight started calmly, but later Gervonta picked up the pace and landed several powerful combinations, forcing his opponent to quit.
A little surprised, but when I caught him, I knew it was like he was hurt. He was hurt bad. He a fighter, so he didn't want to show it, you know what I mean? So I knew he was hurt though.
In the same post-fight interview, Gervonta delighted all fans by announcing his preparation for the fight against Garcia in April.
I'm ready for the fight. It's scheduled for April. I'm here. He's been training, he's been talking, and let's see who's ready about that.
Later, the official date and location of the bout were announced. April 22nd, T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas. And although Davis and Garcia were supposed to fight only in early 2023, many boxing fans already declared their clash the main event of the year. In February, Gervonta had issues with the old case involving the car accident in which he didn't admit guilt. The proceedings had been going on for more than 2 years, and the police finally managed to gather the irrefutable evidence of his guilt. The fight with Garcia could have been the last in the career of Tank, and he couldn't afford to mess it up. Perhaps for this reason, a mandatory condition for the fight was a rehydration clause for Garcia, limiting him to no more than 10 pounds after the official weigh-in. The champion justified his demand by saying he didn't want to fight a weight bully. The first press conference took place in early March and was not as dynamic as fans would have liked. There was no visible animosity or even conflict between the fighters, which was very strange. However, by the next official meeting, their attitudes had changed.
So I'm not just happy that we're here. I made it happen, but now I'm focused on winning. I don't care about just making it a big fight. It's great that it's a huge fight, but I'm here to win. And I promise you, I got the heart, I got determination you've never seen before. You like to fight guys that don't hit hard. But guess what? I do hit hard. And when I hit you with that left hook,
what else?
Yeah, what else? You're gonna see watch. When I hit you with it, you're gonna be like, what? You're on the floor.
What else?
Sleep.
What else?
Good night.
You're not a complete
You're gonna
fighter.
see in the
You
ring.
don't got no footwork.
Okay.
You don't got no
Okay.
IQ.
Okay.
You don't got nothing, bro.
Oh, thank you.
At the final press conference, the fighters continued to entertain fans with verbal sparring and mutual threats of one-punch destruction.
I guess, again, he'll just have to wait and see when I'm in there why I'm so special. He can't see it, but he'll see it once he's in there. You're laughing, but I'm dead serious. It's gonna happen and it's gonna be over, quick. The left hook.
I only need one, too.
Okay.
You get that, too?
That's fine. All right, then we both got it. We both got it.
Like, come on, bro.
I can't hear you.
I touch that jaw, I'm telling you, you're going to sleep.
When I touch anything, you're going to sleep.
I promise you. Once I touch that jaw, you're going to sleep.
Finally, all the promises were made, and it was time to deliver. Garcia pressed the champion, but completely forgot about defense. By the second round, he was knocked down, and in the 7th, he took a liver shot and was knocked out.
Everything was excited, man. I was excited to be a part of this event. I remember coming up in a Golden Glove, and I seen Floyd fight at the MGM, and it was crazy. I actually just seen Rihanna perform at the Super Bowl, and I was like, that was gonna be me one day, and we here.
The 5-year-long feud ended, and the winner was indeed the stronger fighter. From a sporting perspective, this victory might not have been the most important in Davis's career, but for his legacy and wallet, everything turned out perfectly. The fight sold 1.2 million PPVs and generated over $100 million in revenue. Insane numbers reflecting the worldwide interest of boxing fans. After such a brilliant performance, the champion definitely deserved time to rest and recover, but he had another fight ahead, though not in the ring. Less than 2 weeks later, Davis appeared in court where several people would decide his future. Fortunately, the judge was reasonable and didn't destroy the career of a still young and ambitious guy. Instead of real jail time, Tank received 3 years of probation, 90 days of house arrest, and 200 hours of community service. The place chosen for house arrest was the apartment of his coach, who replaced Gervontai's father, Calvin Ford. The boxer only needed to spend 3 months in peace and solitude with his thoughts, but already on June the 2nd, he was arrested. Tank violated the terms of his arrest and later criticized the judge, for which he was rightly sentenced to 1.5 months in prison. Davis was released on July 15 and immediately learned that during his absence, his penthouse was robbed. The damage amounted to nearly $3.5 million, and the list of stolen items included not only various trinkets, but also expensive cars. The perpetrators were never found. After his release, Davis did not announce any new fights and rarely appeared in the media. Additionally, in May, it was revealed that he had split up with Vanessa Pozo, who falsely accused him of domestic violence. Later, everything was confirmed. Thus, Gervonta found himself free in every sense, thinking about what to do next. Until the end of 2023, there was no news about Davis or his fights, except that his trainer was also jailed for a while for assault with a weapon. Then on December the 27th, the boxer announced that he had converted to Islam and would now be known as Abdul Wahid, which translates to Servant of the One. Many media personalities supported Davis in his new beginnings. The new year of 2024 began, and there was still no news about Tank's return to action. At one point, there was a rumor that Arab sheiks wanted to see Davis at their boxing event, to which the Baltimore native responded immediately, saying he would fight if they sent him 2 Ferraris. The sheik's response was a promise to send 2 gloves and nothing more, so Gervonta never made it to the Arab event. Fans were starting to worry and demanded that the star finally find an opponent, and in April, we were finally pleased. Gervonta announced that he was ready to put on the gloves and get to work, and he would be assisted by the undefeated Frank Martin, whom Tank had known since the fight against Leo Santa Cruz. Over the years, the Ghost made a lot of progress, moved from 140 pounds to 135, and brought his record to 18-0, though he had never fought for a title of one of the major organizations. in 2023, he had such an opportunity. At that time, Shakur Stevenson was looking for opponents and Martin was one of the many offered a fight against Shakur. But Frank preferred to wait for a more profitable contract. Not a bad gamble. In his recent fights, the Ghost defeated some decent prospects, handing them their first career losses, but now he was facing Gervonta Davis, which was a whole different level. However, trainer Derek James promised to prepare the guy to the fullest and present the Baltimore native, whom they had been preparing for a long time, with some unpleasant surprises. Did it work out? Frank started the fight with accurate hits coupled with quick movements and did not look like the huge underdog the analysts portrayed. However, as Tank increased his pressure, Martin's confidence dwindled until eventually Davis destroyed him with a one-punch knockout in the 8th round. The 30th victory and 28th knockout in the career of the unparalleled puncher and champion Gervonta Davis.
Yeah, he had decent power, but he was weighing down as the fight was going on. That's how I know that, you know what I mean, he was breaking down, you know what I mean? So that's when I started picking it up more. My coach was telling me to pick it up more.
But what now? All roads are still open to Davis, and he is free to choose any opponent, though fans have already decided who they want to see their favorite fight next. The most popular options are a rematch with Isaac Cruz, who recently beat the loudmouth Romero, a clash with Vasily Lomachenko, who currently holds the IBF title, or a showdown with Haney. The latter is the most appealing to fans because Devon and his team of lawyers managed to prove that the guy who beat him, Ryan, was on steroids. Because of this, Garcia was given a 1-year ban and Devon got his precious 0 back, and fans would love to see Tank put him in his place as he once did in joint sparring sessions. However, I don't think a coward like Devon Haney will dare take such a dangerous fight, so Gervonta will have to fight someone else. Who will it be? I think we will find out very soon. Today, Gervonta Davis is undeniably one of the best and perhaps the most popular boxers in the world. His power, technique and fight IQ are at an unattainable level for most mortals, and the numbers speak for themselves. 30-0 with 28 knockouts. An inexplicable phenomenon. That's who he is. Are his achievements enough to be called one of the greatest in history and to stand among legends? I think not yet, but can Gervonta be called the greatest lightweight boxer in history? It seems we have every reason to think so. You can agree with me or not, but it's foolish to argue with one statement.
I'm definitely face of boxing.